Alright, today we're going to move into lesson 8, which is solve percent problems. This is on page 155. So lesson 8, chapter 2, lesson 8. This is the last lesson in the chapter itself, so after this we'll be doing a study guide and a test. So, jumping right into the vocabulary startup. Okay, your goal here today is to work with percent problems, and we're going to be talking about the percent proportion as well. So a proportion is an equation that shows two ratios are equivalent. In a percent proportion, one ratio compares a part to the whole, and the other ratio is the equivalent percent written as a fraction with the denominator 100, which we talked about in the past with changing percents into fractions. So this is kind of just going more in depth with that. So it says, how do you compare part and whole? Well, fraction here, we have examples, 2/5. Well, part is your numerator. Whole, which means total. I'm talking like the total amount, like the big part. Part means like part of it. So if we're talking about money, we're talking about, so if something's on sale, it was regular price at $10, it's on sale for $6. The part would be 6, the whole would be $10 because it was originally $10 to buy it. Now it's on sale. So it says, what do you call the part? Like I said, the numerator. And then the whole would be the denominator. Okay, so now you're talking about the ratio. It says, using the information in the first ratio, fill in the others. Well, we talked about ratios in the last chapter, so we know that 2 to 5 means 2 to 5, and 2 to 5. It's read the same way for all of them. Okay, and then for the percent, we're talking about 2/5. We're talking about out of 100. Well, we don't know the percent, so that's what we're trying to find. So basically what you have to figure out is how do you get from 5 to 100? Well, you multiply by 20. Well, you gotta do the same thing up here. That would be 40. So 40% of 5 equals 2, which we're gonna go more into here shortly. So down here it says, Kara is on her school basketball team. She's completed 9 out of 12 free throw shots successfully. Write the ratio as a percent and as a fraction in simplest form. So if we do 9 over 12, okay, that's a fraction, but this isn't in simplest form, so we're going to divide a 3 out. So that would be 3 over 4, 3 to 4. So for every 4 shots, she made 3 of them. That's how that would be read. Now to turn this into a percent, we got to change this to be 100 on the bottom. So we multiply by 25. So we get 75. Well, that would be 75%. So 3/4 and 75%. Simplest form, percent. Alright, let's go on to the next page. Okay, so it says use number lines to find the whole. So this is one way of doing this. Okay, this is one way to actually solve this out. It's up to you if you want to use it this way. It does not matter, but this is, so if you know the part and the percent, you can find the whole or the total. You have used bar diagrams to solve percent problems. Now we're going to double the lines up so we can illustrate percents. So 10 is 25% of what number? Okay, well, if you look, every time you move, okay, I don't prefer this method. I think it's a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to just talk about it. I'm not going to go more in depth with it. I would rather you use the percent proportion, okay? This is the way that's going to be used majority of the time the rest of your math career, all through high school. You will use the percent proportion later in life too, or later in like math classes anyways. So don't worry about doing the number lines because honestly, I don't really care for them. If they're easier for you, go right ahead. So like I was saying with the number lines, okay, so use double number lines to model 25% and 10. Well, so we have our percentages here, and then we have this. So what they're talking about is that if you divide this up into, so 0%, 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%, then you match it with 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, you're actually just increasing by the amounts. So if you look, 10 is 25% of what number? All right, so if we start at 10 and we got to get to 100%, we know that 1, 2, 3. Well, we got to do the same thing here. 1, 2, 3. So 40 is the 100% mark. Guys, if you don't understand that method, it doesn't bother me because, like I was saying, you're not going to use this method a lot. If you do, that's fine. If this is easier for you, that's fine. But we're going to get into the percent proportion where you guys are going to majority use the proportion to solve these out. So country music makes up 75% of Langdon's music library. If he has downloaded 90 country music songs, how many songs does Langdon have in his music library? So once again, using the double number line, we have 0, 25, 50, 75, 100, and then here we have 0, 30, 60, 90, 120. They went up by 30, okay, because you got to divide it out into parts, 4 equal parts. So then if you move forward 4 times, you know that it's 120. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, getting away from the number lines, all right? I know that was confusing. I don't really understand it myself. I'm not going to lie to you. That's why I prefer this method, the percent proportion, because this is what we talked about on the first page. This is that first ratio where it talks about part is in your numerator, your whole is 32. Now, on the other side is your percent. So all percents are out of 100. So no matter what, this number right here is going to be 100. Now it just depends on what percent you're talking about here. So in here it says 75% of 32 is 24. Well, 24 goes on top, that's your part, and your whole is the 32. Then 75 would go over 100. So let's work one of these out. So example number 3. All right, 15 is 30% of what number? Okay, so I know that 15 is our part. Because if it's talking about 15 is 30% of a number, we know that number is going to be bigger. So I'm just going to put an X. You don't have to put anything. You can leave it blank like they did. I always just use variables because for future with algebra, it's just a lot easier to get used to now. Now, 30% would go 30 over 100. Now, to solve this, there's 2 ways of doing it. One way is to cross multiply like this. Or, since these numbers work well together, how do you get from 30 to 15? Well, you divide by 2. Well, you got to do the same thing down here. Divide by 2. 100 divided by 2, that's 50. So that's your answer. It's not 50% because it's 30% up here. We're not talking about percentages now. We're talking about the whole number, the total. So like example number 4, all right? So 225 is 75% of what number? Okay, so since it said whatever comes after of what number, that means your whole. We don't know that, but we know 225 is your part, and we know 75 is your percent. So now if you look, okay, that method doesn't work. So I'm going to cross multiply. So when you cross multiply, you get 75x equals 225, so 22,500. Then you got to divide by 75. Okay? So then we divide, we get x equals, and then you divide this number out here. So when you divide this out, 22,500 divided by 75, you get 300. Okay, that's when we cross multiply. So when you cross multiply, if you do this, okay, if you look, 75 does go into 225, but this time you have to multiply. So you have to you got to remember to multiply. So if I do this method up here where I just either multiply or divide, so 225 over x or whatever, and 75 over 100. Okay, to get from 75 to 225, 75 to 225, okay, I got to multiply 75 by 3, because we always start here and go back. We're trying to get from this number to this number. So I got to multiply by 3. Well, whatever I do to the top, I got to do to the bottom. So that would be 300. See, same answer, two different ways of multiplying it out. So let's go over a couple pages and let's do, I'm not going to do 1 or 2 because I'm not going to do the number line. I don't prefer, that method is just very confusing, and honestly, if you don't use it, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay? I don't use it so that, like I said, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Now, looking at 3 and 4. Okay? 3 and 4. Alright, 22 is 44% of what number? Okay, automatically, whenever it says of what number, you know that this is the whole. Okay, if it's around is, that's your part. And then obviously that's your percent. So I'm going to set up my proportion. So 22 over blank equals 44 over 100. Now if you look, how do you get from 44 to 22? How do you go from 44 to 22? Well, you got to divide by 2. Whatever you do up top, you got to do down here. So that would be 50. So 50. So 22 is 44% of 50. Basically, how that is read. Now, number 4, same thing. So this is our part. This is our whole. We don't know the whole. So 450 over blank equals 75 over 100. So how do we get from 75 to 100? We're going to have to multiply, because remember, we always start here, go there. So how do we get from 75 to 450? Well, you got to multiply it by 6. Well, whenever you do the top, or the bottom, or the top, you got to do the bottom. So 6 times 100 would be 600. So your whole is 600. Remember, these aren't percents. We're not finding the percent here. We're finding the total amount. So let's do another one like that, because I like to do more examples than I need to. So number 3 on page 158. Okay, 120 right there, part, percent of means whole. All right, so we have 120. Remember, that's your part. Whole's on bottom. We don't know that. It's blank. And then 30, which goes into your percent over there, over 100. So how do we get from 30 to 120? Well, you got to multiply by 4. Whatever you do at the top, got to do the bottom, times 4. So 400. So the total amount, so 120 is 30% of 400. So like I said, this is why I like the percent proportion, because it's literally, are you multiplying the number or are you dividing the number? It just depends. So like this one, 60 over blank, because I don't know it, equals 15 over 100. How do I get from 15 to 6? Sorry. I multiplied it by 4. Got to do the same thing over here. Multiply it by 4. So we're going to multiply both of these by 4, and you get 400 again. So 60 is 15% of 400. So now, knowing how to use the percent proportion, we're not going to do A, B, and C, because they want you to use the number line, and we're not going to do, I don't want you guys to do that. It's just too confusing. So D, E, F, G. It's D, E, F, and G. Okay? So pause the video, do D, E, F, and G using the percent proportion, come back, and we're going to talk about these individually. Okay, now that you're back, let's do letter D. So 75 is 15% of what number? Well, 75 is our part. We don't know the whole. 15 over 100. So now we got to figure out how we got from 15 to 75. Well, multiply by 6, I believe. No. I think it's... Let me see, 75 divided by 15 is 5. Why am I thinking 6? I don't know. So that was 5, so we got to do the same thing there, times 5. Well, that's 500. So D is 500. Okay, so 75 is 15% of 500. Now, letter E, 9 is 36% of what number? So how do we get from 36 to 9? Well, we divide by 4. Divide by 4, and you get 25. Okay, letter F. 7 is 70% of what number? So 70, to get to 7, you got to divide by 10. Okay, well that would be 10 over here, so 10's our number. Alright, and then 7 is 35% of what number? So we get from 35 to 7, well we divide by 5, divide by 5, and you get 20. Sorry guys, I keep coughing. Alright, so set up the percent proportion. So this entire lesson, guys, they're going to give you the part. They're not going to give you the whole. That's what you're trying to find. They're going to give you the percent, and you know automatically it goes over 100. okay? So, the only thing else you're going to see is a story problem just like this. Doesn't change anything. Still doing the same thing. So like this, before 1982, pennies were 95% zinc and 5% copper. If 100 pennies minted in 1980 have an approximate mass of 15 grams of copper, what is the total mass of the 100 pennies? Well, you said percent proportion, okay? We're talking about copper, so we're going to use that percentage. Make sure you pay attention to that. And we're going to do 15 grams. We don't know how much it is total, but we know it's 15 grams for that, for each one, and 5% over 100. So how do you get from 5 to 15? Well, you multiply by 3. How do you get from 100? So you gotta do the same thing, times 3. So the total mass of 100 pennies is gonna be 300 grams. So go down and look at number 5 down here. In the first year of ownership, a new car can lose 20% of its value. If a car lost $4,200 of value in the first year, how much did the car originally cost? Well, here's our part, 4,200. We don't know the whole, so I'm going to put W. Equals 20 over 100. Well, how do you get from 20 to 4,200? Well, you're going to have to multiply that out. And you get 210. So we had to multiply 200 by 210. Well, you got to do the same thing down here, times 210. So that's going to be 21,000. So on these, you need to go back, watch the video, take notes, and then go from there.